I just didn't like him because he was very, I think, shut off and giving off the I don't like this person vibe.
Yes.
So I did not like him for that. And that lack of being who he was not authentic to himself.
Yeah.
And that was what I didn't like. He just didn't like me because I was a brat, and he laughs. He's like, "You're still a brat, but I just love you now." So
there you go. Hi everyone, I'm Alex, and I help shy, introverted nerds get over their fears and anxieties to find their player 2. Today I bring you Emmy, a nerd who found her player 2, and we're going to talk about how they ended up together. The idea is to address some of your questions, dispel some myths, and hear about the many different ways that nerds can find real relationships. Emmy, thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, first questions first, what makes you a nerd?
Well, I was not always a nerd. I actually grew up in the backwoods in Oklahoma, and I didn't actually know about nerd culture until I met my husband. I now am very into video games and the various fandoms like Doctor Who and Star Trek, Star Wars, the Marvel movies, things like that. I like board games. I've recently got into Magic the Gathering. I play that with my husband. So basically, all the nerdy things, I have discovered that I really love them. But I was not exposed to them when I was younger. So when I met him, I had no clue that I had that side to me until he started introducing me to these things. I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was an option.
You were converted into the dark side.
Yes.
I like it. It's funny because I can't fathom not knowing about nerd stuff.
Yeah. Well, my dad was very into things like hunting and, sports and things like that. So growing up, about the nerdiest thing I knew about was Spyro, and I loved it. I played the daylights out of it. And so, the little bits of nerd fandom that I did get introduced to, I loved. But it was very, very sparse. And my parents had some very specifically, my dad had some very strong opinions on things and what we were and were not allowed to be exposed to. So, if Harry Potter was on, I had to leave the room.
Wow.
I was not allowed to have Pokemon cards. That was not something I was allowed to participate in. So I was not ever given those opportunities as a child. But whenever I became an adult and I was able to make my own decisions, I fell in love with all of it.
You kind of you're having the childhood you wish you had.
Yes, very much so. So it's been really wonderful to get to fall in love with all this. And I tease my husband and tell him, I think I'm the bigger nerd now because I've introduced him to things too. Oh my goodness, I watched this new show. You have to come watch it with me. And it's been a fun thing to do together. It's nice to have hobbies that we can do together and enjoy together. Go into the different Comic-Cons and PopCon. And, we've recently gotten into Magic the Gathering together. We want to get into the Warhammer 40K. And we want to eventually get into playing Dungeons and Dragons.
That's pretty cool. So let's get into your story. Where does your story with your husband start?
So, funny enough, it starts with him dating my best friend, which I know can be kind of controversial for a lot of people. We were very young, and he did not like me, at all. But whenever he first met me, he was dating my friend. And I had just moved away from her and I hadn't seen her for a while. So he had traveled a long ways because my friend and I both lived in Oklahoma, and he lived in Indiana. And that is at a minimum like a 10-hour trip in a car to get there. So he had traveled this long distance to come see her. And the first thing I do is walk up to him and be like, "Hi, I am stealing your girlfriend from you," and yank her because I'm like, I need to talk to you about something. And I don't want him to know anything about it because I don't know him. And so that's his first impression of me. And he's like, "I do not know who this brat is, but I do not like her at all." So him and my friend broke up not long after that. And I did not have anything to do with that. I will say
just
that.
To be clear.
But yes, just to be clear, I had nothing to do with that. I advocated for him because I think he's a pretty cool guy. But she did not like the distance between them. She did not like the idea that should their relationship continue, she may have to move and start a life in another state. And so they discontinued that relationship on good terms, and they remained friends.
Right. But like you said, he didn't like you because you stole his girlfriend in a way. What did you think of him?
I thought he was nice. He was extremely shy. And he didn't talk that much. But I could also kind of tell that he didn't like me. So that kind of made me, in a very like defensive way, I didn't like him either, because if you're not going to like me, I'm not going to like you.
Yep.
And so we really did not click. And so for the next 3 years, we kind of moved in the same social circles. We had a lot of friends in common, but we didn't really associate with each other because we had that first impression of each other. And anytime I tried to talk to him, I could just tell he's sitting there thinking, "Would you please just go away?" Like, I am a very bubbly person, and he is not a very bubbly person. So I could just tell he's sitting here going, "When is this girl going to shut up and leave me alone?" And so I didn't much care for him either, because I could tell like our vibes are not vibing together. So for 3 years, we kind of moved in these circles where we would see each other at these big functions that we would travel to and see each other. And then, we were friends online. And it was kind of like this polite, like, I'm your friend, but I not really am going to interact with you that much type of a situation.
Yep.
But when we reconnected, he had made the trip to Oklahoma, and he had come to the town where I was living because there was a big church function happening. And he had stopped along the way to see a friend that I had not seen in several years. I thought, well, maybe he'll bring this friend along with him. And I really wanted to see her.
Yeah.
Well, he had not brought this friend, but I decided I was going to go talk to him whenever I saw him. So I walk up to him and I'm just like, "Hi, how are you?" And he turns around and he actually like smiled at me and acted happy to see me. And it was just like something switched in my head. Like, well, maybe he's not as bad as I thought he was.
Do you know what changed?
I don't know. He says he doesn't know. It was just, I guess he opened up his mind a little bit instead of viewing me as being this very annoying person. He kind of let himself view me a little differently. Okay. And that weekend, he wound up spending quite a bit of time at my house because somebody that he was friends with was dating somebody that I was friends with, and they wound up at my house a lot. So we wound up just kind of in each other's kind of general area a lot that weekend. But he never asked me for my phone number. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, this guy's okay, and he's pretty cute, and he's funny, and I'm kind of liking him, but he has no clue. No clue at all that I like him.
So it was 3 years of neither of you, I don't want to say being able to stand each other, but at least like just like being polite to each other.
Yes,
and
we
then,
were very polite.
And then like suddenly one weekend that you get to spend together, you're like, I actually like him.
Yeah. It was a very weird thing because we had always just kind of tolerated each other. We had always just kind of been in the same general area and tolerated each other for as long as we had to. But then like I said, I am not exactly sure why things clicked differently, but that weekend, I think he was maybe a little more self-confident that weekend. He was not so in his head about what other people were thinking, because the version I have of him now is the version he was that weekend. He was making jokes. He was not trying to fit into what other people would have him to be. He was wearing his nerdy t-shirts. He was owning that side of himself a little bit more than I had ever seen, making nerdy jokes and just being really silly. And for me, that was kind of what was like, oh, I really like this energy. I like this silliness. I like this openness that he's bringing to the table. But I had never really seen that from him before, because before this point, he had always kind of been shut off and reserved, and I always assumed it was because he didn't like me and didn't want to be around me. And I think that was part of it, because he really did not like me.
It was true.
But I also think a part of it was he didn't know. It took him a long time to find his footing in who he was and to feel comfortable in just being his nerdy self and not worrying about what other people thought of him and what other people thought about that side of him.
Right.
Because a lot of our friends were not nerds.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, were you a nerd at that point?
I was not. At this point in time, I was not a nerd at all. I didn't, like, he was wearing these nerdy shirts and I'm like, okay, you have to explain why there's 9 3/4 on your shirt. Like, I don't understand why this is on your shirt. And so he explained it to me. And there was this light in his eyes as he's talking about this thing that he loves. And I loved that. I loved seeing that in him. And whenever he really started opening up and just being who he was, and like I said, just being silly and not being afraid to be silly and to own that side of himself, that's when I'm like, oh, I really like this guy, you know? And we became friends at that point.
Right. So. Yeah, I really like what you're saying, because, I mean, that's what I always say. And it's really good because, like, we didn't talk before this and you're just saying everything that I've been saying for a long time. So I love this. But what I find with many of the people that I talk to and my clients is they're afraid to show their nerd side or be themselves because they're afraid of rejection. But that's exactly why they keep getting rejected. And once they start opening up with like, this is what I like, this is who I am, usually they find that like even non-nerds, they're like, oh, cool, you get excited about something you like. Tell me about it.
Yes. And for me, that was exactly the way it was. Because my whole life, I had been surrounded by people who got very excited about sports and hunting and things that didn't really excite me, but, you know, they were supposed to excite me because of where I lived and who I was raised by. But for the first time in my life, somebody was talking about something new and they were excited about it and they were passionate about these things that they were telling me about, you know, and it was, you know, the longer we talked and the longer we were friends, there was more to discover, like, you know, the video games and I mean, even years later, he's like, oh yeah, I used to play Magic the Gathering. I'm like, we've been married for years and you've never told me this. And it was just years of, as a young teenager, he, I think, got bullied for being a nerd.
Yeah.
And he locked that part of him away. But whenever he really opened that side of himself up is when he really caught my eye. And I was not a nerd at the time, but I'm really glad he opened up because it changed my entire life.
Yeah, for sure. So during that weekend, you were like, I like him. You said he didn't ask you for your number, but you guys had a way to connect though, online.
I messaged him on Facebook. So he came by the store where I worked to say goodbye, like the morning that he headed out. And it was about a 15-hour drive. So that night after I got off work, I messaged him like, hey, did you guys, make it home safe? And he messaged me back and was like, yeah, but, getting back to real life sucks. And so it opened a window for us to kind of start messaging each other back and forth on Facebook. And
you opened the window.
I did. I did open the window because he was clueless, completely clueless.
Did he like you during that weekend, after that weekend? Do you know?
He did. He just did not. He says he didn't realize that it was an option to continue talking to me. He just thought it was, okay, we're hanging out in this big group setting. And he didn't realize that the option to try to continue talking to me after the weekend was over was something that he had available to him.
Do you know why?
Because I am not exactly sure, but I think there was, like you had said before, this fear of rejection, and it was just easier to not. So whenever I messaged him with, hey, did you guys make it home safe? And like, hey, I want to continue to leave this door open. That gave him that, oh, she wants to keep talking to me. And then from there, we continued to talk. And then eventually we did exchange phone numbers and we started doing Skype dates. Well, at first they weren't dates. They were just hanging out on Skype as friends. He was going into his last year of college. And so when he started that, he was doing his studying and I would hang out in the evenings. And I honestly, at this point, I can't even remember what I would be doing. That was so many years ago. But I was doing whatever it was that I would do, and he was doing whatever he would do. And we were just hanging out as friends at that point in the evenings and talking about our day. And, that's how we spent our evenings.
Right. How did that come up? Like hey, let's jump on a call and then turning into we're both doing our things, parallel play.
So I'm actually not 100% sure how that fully came about. It was more of, I think, man, I really wish you lived closer so we could hang out because we have a lot of fun talking whenever we're texting each other. And, we don't really have time to like be on the phone talking. And so it's like, I wish you could just like be here to hang out while I'm doing my thing and you're doing your thing. And at this point in time, like video calling had not been like widely used very often. Like it was pretty new to me anyways, because this would have been back in 2011. And so it wasn't just a commonplace thing for everybody to be on video calls all the time. So it's like, well, I've heard about Skype. I don't know if you've ever used it. We could hang out that way. It's like, okay, I've never used that, but sure, let's do it. And so we started hanging out on Skype in the evening time, and it was just easier to do that than it was to keep texting back and forth and to, have a phone call or whatever. It was just easier to do whatever we were doing and still get to hang out together.
Yeah.
But we lived so far apart from each other that we couldn't hang out as friends and spend time together and really get to, know each other better any other way. So that's what we did.
Once you guys started talking to each other like more often and became friends before something happened, like before you started dating, did it come up that you guys didn't like each other before or not at that point yet?
Not at that point yet, because I actually think it took after we were married before we either one acknowledged how much we didn't like each other. It was just kind of like, yep, I knew you before, but we neither one wanted to admit how much we didn't like each other. It was funny about, I would say 3 or 4 months before we met each other again and got like reconnected. I had been dating somebody else and we were hanging out in a group and his name had come up in the conversation. And I kind of was like, ugh, whatever. I don't really like that guy very much. And they're like, oh, you better be careful what you say. You could end up marrying him. And I laughed. I was like, oh yeah, that is never going to happen. I would never marry that guy. And what's funny is he was in a relationship with somebody else at that point too. And I asked him after we'd been married for a while, I'm like, what would have you said at that point in time? Like if somebody had walked up to you and been like, hey, yeah, you're going to go marry Emmy over there. He's like, I would have looked at them like they were the craziest person. I'm like, I'm glad to know I wasn't alone in that because I felt so guilty afterwards. I'm like, yeah, I actually did end up marrying that person who was not an option in my mind. And it's funny because he's my best friend still. We still hang out in the evenings after we get the kids to bed. Like we make time to hang out with each other every night. And, he is still my best friend. It's beyond just being my husband. Like we spend time together doing the things we enjoy and laughing and having fun. It's not just, oh yeah, that's my husband. It's like, no, that's my best friend. And he was my best friend before anything else, And that's a really good place to start any relationship because there have been times that the husband and wife relationship can get really hard. And the friendship relationship makes it a lot easier to get through that.
You can go trash talk about your husband to your best friend.
Yes, actually. It works. I mean, because you can be like, hey, you know what? This is not okay. Yeah. And
you won't believe what my husband just did.
Yeah. And, it goes the other way too. And, because we are best friends, we have very open lines of communication there. And that's very important in any relationship of any kind is having the ability to say, hey, that makes me feel uncomfortable, or I really don't like when this happens, or, hey, I really need help with this area of my life, or, hey, when you did that, I loved that. Can you do that more often? You have to be able to talk to the person you're with. And I think as an introvert, that was a lesson I had to learn because I have always been extremely socially anxious and introverted. So learning how to open up those lines of communication was not an easy thing for me to learn.
You say socially anxious and introverted, but he didn't like that you talked too much.
So I have always been socially anxious and introverted, but I was in a society that was not allowed. It was not acceptable to be those things. So I did it uncomfortable. Right. It was one of those things that at the end of the night, I felt like throwing up, but I still pushed myself to get out there because if you didn't, that was very much so frowned upon. You were supposed to be social. You were supposed to get out there and talk to everybody and put yourself out there and be friends with everybody. And I tried that. And I tried to be that, and once I'm comfortable with somebody, I am a very, bubbly person. And I taught myself how to push through that social anxiety that I have. It's still there. And I'm still like, oh my goodness, I don't want to be doing this in most social situations. But I had to learn how to push through that because it was kind of required by family members, and it was not an acceptable thing to not be social. That was not really an option. Right.
What happened now that you found that you're a nerd?
I am not social. Not unless I have to be. I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, you gave me my safe space. I like to be home. I like to, on date nights, my favorite thing is we order food and bring it home, and we watch our favorite fandom show. Like recently it's been Doctor Who. Like we go eat, grab our eat out and we watch Doctor Who. We might, open some Magic the Gathering cards or play some Magic the Gathering, or, he'll get on his PC and I'll get on mine and we'll game together and be on a Discord call so we can talk to each other while we're gaming. And that's my ideal date night because I don't have to be out and around other people. He is my security blanket. Because I have found now that I can be out in bigger crowds as long as he's with me. But if he's not, it makes it a lot harder to be out amongst other people.
It becomes draining.
It does. Because he helps shield me from a lot of that. Because I know that if I am not up to having the interaction, he is there and he will absorb that for me.
So you guys were chatting for a month and a half and Skyping every day pretty much. How did the idea of meeting come up?
So I had a friend out here who was having a big birthday bash, and so I decided I was going to make the trip out here for that big birthday bash. And I would spend time with him while I was out here. That way it was low stakes. I wasn't making the trip exclusively to see him.
I have an excuse.
Exactly. Yeah. It was easier if I had the excuse hey, there's this event happening. I'm coming out. And while I'm there, we'll hang out together. We had been kind of flirty a little bit, but I also was not sure. I remember talking to my sister and I'm like, I don't know if he's just a flirty guy and just being nice and complimenting me here and there, or if he is actually flirting with me, he would like something more eventually. And apparently he was, doing the same thing with his friends. I don't know what's happening right now.
This is new. This has never happened before. Yeah. But he was flirting.
He was flirting with me. But he was trying to do it in a way that he did not come across as being creepy or overbearing. So it was very silly flirting. Oh, we're going to have the best time when we're together. We'll have tea and crumpets. And, like I said, we were very, very silly together. We still are. And like I said, it was just oh, I had the best time and we will have the best time again whenever we are together. And things like that it's it could be flirty, but it could also just be you're being silly. So it was I don't know if this guy is actually flirting with me or if he is just silly. I don't know which way it's going.
I mean, that's part of flirting, right? It's it's yes. Sort of it's not always clear whether it is
And I think that's what makes it feel safe is you can back off and be like, oh, I was just messing around. And so it was this safe zone that we were both in because we had both been rejected in the past and we had both experienced that you're too much kind of, even though I was not a nerd at the time, I also was not the same as everybody else around me. I was not into the same things that they were into. So I had experienced that same kind of, you're kind of odd. So it was different to have met somebody who didn't shy away from my oddness.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we were flirting, but we also, neither one of us were 100% sure, like, this person definitely wants to start dating me until we met up in person again. So
it's funny, like, so I think you're the first person actually who talks about flirting, to be honest. Like, I've interviewed quite a few people, and you're the first one who was like, yeah, we're flirting. And when you mention flirting, it's like, yeah, we're going to have tea and crumpets, we're going to have a great time. I don't think that's what most people consider flirting, and I like it because it shows that there are so many different ways to flirt, right? And it doesn't have to be something like a compliment or something very specific or a pickup line or whatever it is, right? It's something that both of you, maybe if it wasn't really clear that there was attraction, at least it was like you were both on the same boat and you were both having fun.
Yes. And that was, I think, maybe why it was so hard, because it wasn't a clear cut, like, hey, I want to, whatever, or a weird. And that was very much, he did not want to come across as weird or creepy. So there was no pickup lines. There was not like, hey, you're so pretty or anything like that. It was inside jokes and being silly together and making plans to dance in the rain and things like that. That was the way that he flirted with me. And I appreciated that because I knew it was genuine. I knew that he was coming from a place of, I like you as a person and not as a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's often why. So I'm in the same way that we met, that I asked you like how you met your partner and if you started as friends. So I've interviewed 530 something couples at this point. And since I started doing the survey online, so with people on social media, I started seeing people who met through video games, through online communities. And it's interesting because I almost 100% started as friends. But when I hear about people who want to meet their partner that way, that's not how they start. They start with, hey, you alone here? Like, it's clearly, if you're building something online, long distance, you name it, you're going to start with just like low stakes, having fun as friends. You guys knew each other even for like 3 years. Sure, you didn't like each other for 3 years, but that's a different story. But then when things started sort of like turning, it wasn't, okay, now I like her, let's go like full gear.
Yeah. So I decided I was going to make the trip out here for that big birthday bash. And I would spend time with him while I was out here. Of course, the first night I came in, he met up with me. And he's like, hey, where are you at? And so he came over, and immediately it was like, it just clicked into place. And we had our first kiss by the end of the night, because it was like, nope, this is what feels right. And he had asked me on a date. And so from that point on, that was when we had started dating.
So, I mean, like you guys kissed on the first night that you went there for the birthday.
Yeah. Yep. He came to where I was staying. Was staying with another friend. And so he came to see me whenever I'd gotten in, and it was a long trip. So it was fairly late. It was after dinner time, and he came and we hung out for a few hours, and, he held my hand. It took a little while to kind of work up to that. And then
what does that mean? I mean, if I share, what do you mean it took some?
We started with just standing near each other and trying to get the vibe of, does this person want me to actually touch them or not? It was what kind of vibes are they throwing my way, and do they reciprocate what I'm trying to do here? And so after a few times of okay, he's standing close enough to me to touch me, it's okay, I'm tap the back of his hand with my hand, and he grabs my hand, and it's okay, we're on the same page here.
Step one, checked.
Yes. It's okay, we both like each other, unless this is some weird thing that people here do, and I am totally off base, but I think we're good.
It happens, though.
It does. There are miscommunications sometimes.
Yes.
So then by the end of the evening, we were a little more comfortable around each other, and I walked him to his car and he kissed me. Okay. And then it was okay, we are definitely on the same page now.
Yeah, it's if we're holding hands, most likely we're on the same page. Cool. Yes. Come move forward. Awesome.
Yes.
That is hilarious. So, to me, that's kind of where I end the stories, because that's where you're okay, we know we like each other, and then you said, okay, we're gonna date. That's the easy part, let's say. What happened with your friend? Did you ever consider is this an issue with your friend? Did you talk to your friend about it?
She was actually a bridesmaid in our wedding.
Good.
She was completely fine with it. I had told her whenever I started talking to him as a friend that we were talking more often, and she encouraged that, because she's hey, he's a really good guy, and I think you guys would make a really good pair. They just were not a match due to the location differences and her relationship with her family. She's I would never want to live that far away from my family. And so they just were a lot better off as friends. So she never had a problem with me dating him. And we're still friends to this day, her and her husband. Funny thing is, she introduced me to my husband. I introduced her to her husband. I was friends with her husband before, and I had gone over to her house, and I'm hey, I'm on the phone with this guy. Will you talk to him so I can go get myself ready? And he never talked to me again.
Was it on purpose?
No, I had been friends with this guy, and we had been talking on the phone every day. But once they started talking, it was oh no, that's the real connection there. Right. And so they started talking, and then they started dating, and eventually they got married. And so, like I said, it's funny how our social circles, that tends to happen a lot, where I meet somebody and be hey, I know this person, and now you know this person, and now you're going to start dating them. And there's never any hard feelings there. If her relationship had been a very serious relationship, and they had broken up, and it had caused really hard feelings between them, it would not have been something I probably would have considered, or it would have been something that I would have had a very long conversation with her about before pursuing a relationship with him. But they ended on good terms. They ended things 3 years before we reconnected, and their relationship never really got to a very serious phase. because she saw the handwriting on the wall and was like, there's no use in continuing down this road whenever it's just not a compatible thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. It's the reason I was asking because, like, I think I mentioned to you that I uploaded a video of a couple that I interviewed where she's like, oh, I was dating this guy and then his friend showed up and then I broke up with this guy and then I ended up dating him, that then they got married. She does say that a year passed, but everybody was hung up on, oh, like, how could you date your whatever?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have no idea how things are. Like, this guy could be like the best man or whatever. It could be fully supportive. You have no idea.
And that's like, I got a comment on, like, you had seen where I had commented like, oh yeah, my husband did not like me when we first met. But whenever I commented that, oh yeah, we met through, he was dating my best friend, somebody's like, wait, you mean your friend was okay with this? I'm like, yes, my friend actually was okay with this. They were happy for me and they were in my wedding and they have been out to see me a couple of different times. And so it's just, every situation is different. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up on like hard rules on things instead of looking at the nuance of things. Because sometimes people will meet and think like, oh, I have to have a romantic relationship because you're a guy and I'm a girl. And that's just not feasible because they are not compatible in that way, but they are compatible as friends. But there may be somebody else in the friend group that is a compatibility there. And it would be very odd to just completely rule out the idea of everybody else in the friend group based off of figuring out that, oh, I think we work better as friends.
Yeah.
Like I said, if there were hard feelings or it had been a very serious or complicated relationship, that would change my answer. But with it being what it was, there were absolutely no hard feelings. She actually came out with me to see him shortly after we started dating. It was the trip that we took together and it was just me and her. So, like I said, she had been completely supportive of the entire relationship from the start before we ever started dating.
Yeah. And like you said, even if it had been a serious relationship, you would have talked about it.
Yes. Because you can have a serious relationship with somebody and realize this does not work as long as the person, as long as it's amicable whenever you break up. Like, it's not, they did this thing that extremely hurt me. Mm-hmm. It was this did not work because we are not compatible. There's a difference there.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people break up because there's a hurt there. And that is a line I don't think I would personally feel comfortable crossing. Because if you hurt my friend, I'm not going to be okay with dating you because I don't trust you anymore. But if it is a compatibility issue, that's where, with some time and talking with the friend beforehand, before you talk, even before you involve the other person that you may be interested in, talk to your friend, because there may be things about the story of why they weren't compatible that you don't know, that you may need to know before making that decision. So, for me, I was there whenever she made the decision to break up with them. So I knew the whole story with them. When I say we were best friends, we were very best friends. I was there whenever she started talking to him, to when she started dating him to when she broke up with him. I was there for all of that. And so I knew the story behind them. And I knew whenever I became friends with him that it was not going to be a problem.
Right.
That me dating him was not going to be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's... You saw the whole thing. You were quite aware. You didn't like him not because of that. You just didn't like him, period.
I just didn't like him because... And truthfully, it was because he was very, I think, shut off and giving off the I don't like this person vibe.
Yes.
So I did not like him for that. And that lack of being who he was not authentic to himself.
Yeah.
And that was what I didn't like. He just didn't like me because I was a brat, and he laughs. He's like, "You're still a brat, but I just love you now." So
there you go. That's interesting. That because from your side it makes sense why it changed. From his side, it's like something clicked.
Yeah, we aren't completely sure. I think a lot of it has to do with. We both did a lot of growing in that 3 years, a lot of becoming comfortable with who we are as people, because he was not the only one who was owning themselves a little bit more. I was definitely trying a little bit harder to be more open and not be so... I don't know what the right word is, but not be such a people pleaser and just be myself. And if you like me, that's great. And if you don't, then that's not my problem. That is just we don't work together, and that's okay too.
Right.
So
it sounds like you both were on the same boat in that regard.
Yeah. And, we talk about we just weren't ready yet. We weren't the people we needed to be able to have a relationship. So it's okay that we didn't particularly like each other, because we weren't ready. If we had attempted a relationship earlier, I don't think it would have worked out, because we were not fully comfortable with ourselves yet. And you have to be comfortable with who you are to be able to be part of a whole. Or else you will just completely lose yourself in trying to be part of something else.
Yeah. I like that. I think that's a great point to stop. Honestly, I think that's awesome. Emmy, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was amazing. I'm sure it's going to be helpful to so many people.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. And everyone watching and listening, if you have any questions for her or for past or future guests, just send me a DM at datelikeanerd or an email at dm@datelikeanerd.com. In the meantime, take care and continue playing.